So one of the top issues in Washington is the immigration deal. Senate negotiators say there is a widespread misinformation about the emerging border package. Have you read the bill and are you satisfied with it?
Well, nobody's seen the text of the bill yet. This is the greatest national security crisis we have at the moment, and that is the flood of 9 million illegal migrants coming across our southern border. Many who are coming across who are on the FBI terror watch list, countries like Yemen, Iran, Iraq, Syria. This is a serious threat to our nation across many fronts. And let's not forget, this all began when President Biden reversed policies that President Trump had put in place. He did this on day one of his administration. He stopped building the wall and then reversed policies like Remain in Mexico that were starting to significantly curtail the flood coming across the southern border. So I'll wait and see what comes up and comes out with this bill that's being crafted. But one thing I do know is President Biden can unilaterally restore the policies that Trump had in place, and he can secure the southern border without the help of Congress.
It's something I'm curious about. It's being said that Republicans are set to kill this bipartisan border deal. Um, what do you think this means for vulnerable GOP lawmakers? I mean, does this put them at risk at all? Or
Now, setting the politics aside on it, just let's not forget this crisis. This crisis erupted after President Biden reverse policies that were working. And let's remember as well, the President Biden and the Senate Democrats and the House Democrats, they had control over this entire town from a legislative and executive branch viewpoint, and they didn't do anything about it. This can be stopped with executive actions that President Biden took wrongfully in January of 21. He needs to reverse those actions, and he can restore the order that we had on that southern border at the end of 2020. This is a serious issue. The Mexican cartels now have command and control over the southern border. Illegal migrants are paying $3,000 to $5,000 each to cartels to come across the border. The flood of fentanyl hitting our Montana communities, it's deadly. This has got to stop. And it's taken way too long to stop this flood. And now it's become a national security crisis because we have individuals from terror states coming into our country.
right. Follow-up question. Former President Trump has come out against the agreement in recent days without reading the bill. North Carolina Senator Tom Tillis argued it is immoral for Republicans to reject a border deal to help former President Trump. Utah Senator Mitt Romney called the effort to kill the bill appalling. If this bill delivers what Republicans have been asking for months, shouldn't they agree and solve it?
Look, we need to solve the problem. The legislation needs to solve the problem. President Biden created this problem by reversing policies. Again, this problem can be solved quickly as it relates to executive action. It'll take some time to implement those actions, but it starts at the top. And it was President Biden, let's never forget this, within hours after being sworn into office, he reversed policies that President Trump had in place, like Remain in Mexico, like building the wall, like Title 42. These policies were working. We had some of the lowest illegal crossings in a decade under President Trump's leadership. And now with President Biden, we've seen record levels flooding across the border. This can be solved by President Biden if he wants to solve the problem. Now it's become a political football, sadly. We need to solve the problem and set the politics aside.
That's a good segue. I think many Americans are frustrated with elected officials in Washington, saying that neither side is doing anything to improve society. Instead, some politicians seem to be more focused on power, celebrity, and money. What is your message to Montanans?
Yeah, well, I spent 28 years in the private sector before coming to Washington. We need to focus on results. We need to hold members of Congress accountable. one of the concerns that many Montanans have is the out of control spending that's happening at the moment. We're near now, $34 trillion plus in debt. What we need to do is put an amendment in the Constitution that requires a balanced budget, just like the Montana law requires of our legislators back home. And then if Washington cannot produce a balanced budget, we should suspend the pay of members of Congress. The accountability needs to come back to members. There are too many folks running on TV, on cable shows and so forth, and radio for the sake of fundraising and making a name for themselves. We got to get back to solving these problems. And let's start with restoring fiscal sanity. Let's start by putting the accountability back in the laps of members of Congress.